The Pride community is all about fulfilling one's desire to be accepted and encouraged in their deviancy. All it takes to be an ally is to cheer on RuPaul as he shakes it in front of little boys. All it takes to be an enemy is to say, dude, you're wrong in the head. What's going on, everyone? My name is Joe Gallagher, and welcome to today's episode of my brand new program for Church Militant, Red Top Report. As promised last time, we will be diving into 3 ways conservatives could have influenced, disrupted, or actually even canceled a Pride event here in Hazel Park, Michigan. Now remember, this is a rubric that can be applied even loosely to events like the one in Hazel Park all across the country. And of course, in case you missed our last episode and you don't want to miss more, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube and our Rumble accounts. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. All of those links are in the description of this video right below. So, as I like to call our program, Red Top Report, consider it RTR. Hopefully it catches on. Tell your friends. And as mentioned, we're diving into the 3 ways you can fight back against pride culture events. It gets cumbersome to constantly say LGBT, LGBTQIA, LGBT plus, alphabet community. It's the pride culture. That's what it is. They subsist, they breathe, they live off of pride. A brief note, this war we find ourselves in, it cannot be won by unmotivated passive deadbeats. Really, at the end of the day, that's just what it is. Jesus Christ did not come down from his heavenly throne and instruct us to simply volunteer our extra hours to win souls for his eternal kingdom. Nope. He asked you for everything you have. Consider this. In Matthew chapter 19, he responds to the rich man, who asks how to be perfect. Now, after all, this man was obeying all of the Jewish laws of the time. Here's how the scripture passage reads. Jesus said to him, "If you want to be perfect, go sell what you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me." So this is not meant to be taken to simply abandon your millions or your hundreds of thousands and live on a rock like a lot of the patristics did. It can mean that for some people, even in today's day and age, but what it does universally mean is abandoning all things that you hold of greater value than your eternal salvation or your love for Jesus Christ. In resistance, we're looking for heroes. It is the only way this job will get done. You cannot win the culture war by turning off your fighter brain while you're at work or you're with your friends in the family gatherings at Thanksgiving, for example, or if you're out at the bar with your friends. It really does mean being on all the time, 24/7, 365. And I say this to you with the understanding that it is extremely difficult to obtain perfection. Of course, the way is narrow, and I, for one, am very far off. But I know that what it takes to be perfect is to do just that, to constantly strive for it. You know this. The saints knew this. God created things to be this way. If you're not winning, you're losing. Or, as Ricky Bobby says, if you ain't first, you're last.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Only heroes can do this work well. Only those who are striving to be heroes will survive the threats of damnation. Only those who have sanctity in their crosshairs will finish this race. So I implore you, I beg of you, to consider all that you do and judge whether or not it is properly ordered to having Jesus Christ as headship over all of your values. I once had a fantastic professor in college say, you can only become holy if you recognize the evil you are capable of doing. So just noodle on that. We think we are so much better than the people at these events. We mock them with memes. Some of them are hilarious. We call them the worst names under the sun when we're online, safe behind a screen, like I am right now. Yet we fail to enforce what we claim to believe with our actions. And what I mean by that is changing their minds and getting their souls right with God. All that you do ought to be with this lens on. If you are not winning souls for Christ, or at least trying to win souls for Christ in everything that you do, and therefore working on your own sanctity concurrently, you are failing. We are failing at the mission that we were given at baptism, that we embraced at confirmation, and that we reaffirm every single time we recite the creed at Holy Mass. So before we dive into these three possible actions, in order to fight, before we dive into these three possible actions, in order to fight against an event, you need to prep for it. And in order to prep for it, you need to know it's coming, and therefore you need to know where to look. For resistance, we encourage all members actually to be on the mailing list for local dissident groups, whether that be Swing Left for Politics, your local Pride Parade, the socialist group down the street. Whatever it is, we should be on the mailing lists, following them on Instagram, and maybe even sitting in on their events. And this is something that I've done many times, and it's very beneficial. We have to know what these folks are up to at all times if we ever want to beat them in their own game, and which, of course, that game is controlling the culture and molding the youth. So a big overarching point here. It is imperative that you are a recipient of the other side's communications. Don't rely on the other people to do the digging for you. You have to do it yourself. And honestly, when you do that, you walk away more educated, tuned in, and aware of the greater overall picture because of it. And if you're prepared with those steps, you are already one step closer to accomplishing option 1, canceling the event. Of course, canceling the event is the best option. That's why we have it as number 1. Why would you want degeneracy to occur if you can stop it and you know how? I mean, the question answers itself. So most local events like this one in Hazel Park require approval from the local city council. So the big question you want to ask here is, who is the guy? That will allow you to know who to contact. With whom does the buck stop? And you can do this after discovering who that is. Usually it's a city council or a subgroup of it. You can do this by either creating some type of contact campaign, whether it be written letter, an email, phone calls, and writing to those people in those positions of authority, telling them to cancel the event. Or another option is you can provide public testimony at the monthly public hearings that all city councils have. And at these hearings, you can implore council members to cancel the event. And if that fails, you can move to option 2, protest the event. If you want to protest an event, you need to understand the local ordinances. And what I mean by this is the city might require a permit for a public gathering, a public demonstration. Yes, even to exercise your First Amendment rights. Because in the Federal Reserve's America, you have rights only if they say so. So, for example, the city of Baltimore reserves the right to disperse any public gathering of more than 30 persons. So it's really important to go to the local city or town's websites and learn their ordinances. It's necessary. The last thing you want to do is have, frankly, an utterly fattening demonstration, only for the popo to shut it down. I mean, you look like an idiot. After understanding the local ordinances when it comes to public demonstration, you ought to answer the following questions. Consider this your prep list that you do for any action item. And the questions are, first, who? Who are you protesting, and who are you bringing to do the protesting? Number 2, where? Where are you standing? Where will you go to? Question 3, when? What time are you wanting people there? What time are you beginning? When are you ending? Question 4, how? What will you be doing? Are you going to have chants? Are you going to say a rosary? Simply speak at the event? Say like, oh, you trannies are going crazy. Repent. Are you going to play music to disrupt their music? Are you going to blare a siren? Question 5, how much? What is the quantity of your demonstration? Are you doing 10 minutes of chants, 30 minutes of sirens, and then a 5-minute talk by a speaker? What will you be doing, and how is it planned out? And then the last question is, to what extent? How far are you willing to go? What happens when some of the very lovely, bulky, bearded men in fishnets, leather boots, and purple mascara make their way over ready to beat the literal cisgender out of you? Now, these are all the questions you have to answer, before having a successful protest. And lastly, and honestly my personal favorite, subverting the event. The Pride community is all about fulfilling one's desire to be accepted and encouraged in their deviancy. All it takes to be an ally is to cheer on RuPaul as he shakes it in front of little boys. All it takes to be an enemy is to say, dude, you're wrong in the head. And sometimes conversion requires a very jarring experience. Actually, for many of us, it does. Something of such magnitude that it shakes a person to their core, emotionally, intellectually. They're just jarred by it. They have nothing to say. And that can be done without saying a word. It's one thing to yell and chant at a group, and in certain times and places, that's the best decision. But it's another thing to be in the thick with them and speaking through action, or more specifically, what you're handing out and what you're wearing. The third option is to simply attend the event and hand out content like videos, flyers, crucifixes, really anything that goes immediately against what they are celebrating. And while you're doing it, wearing your favorite pro-family gear, like this nice shirt. This will make their blood boil. But part 2 of this third point is only able to be done with preparation, prudence, counsel, and numbers. Let's say there's a performance. There's a drag performance. Go attend it. And once the drag show begins, start booing, start shouting, completely disrupt the event and the performer. And this is something that should be done prudently, understanding the best time to do it. For example, when there are children present. You are witnessing indoctrination and the assault on innocence. To stand by and do absolutely nothing is frankly cowardice. At the very least, record it or pray. But if you have numbers, again, prudence, you've been able to prepare and reflect, you can attend it and you can cancel it, disrupt it. And these tactics that I've laid out for you, they're only doable by people who are committed to the fight. Really, at the end of the day, you'll want to do it, but something always will tempt us out of it. And to this point, if you do know of a Pride event coming to a neighborhood near you, give us a call. Send us an email at resistance@churchmilitant.com, and we'll work with you. We'll start supporting you in devising tactics, preparation, verbiage, everything. Send us an email, reply in the comments. We will work with you in making these events become no more. That's what it needs to be. And you're going to have temptations. There's going to be trials with it. Satan hates when truth attacks because he can't beat truth. But you can only operate in truth as much as you embrace it. And heroes embrace truth like it's the oxygen they breathe. Without it, they'd suffocate. We'll catch you next time on Red Top Report.
Run into the box, run it, check it.